Welcome back to another episode of Jibreel Talks Comics. I'm Jibreel, and this is my show where I talk about comics. Very excited about today's show. We have quite a stack to get through. This is the last week that my pull list is going to be this heavy because I unsubbed from a bunch of stuff. So it's going to drop down, and I'm not joking, it's going to drop from like 13, 10 a week to like maybe 3. However, come November, December-ish, I'm going to be buying a bunch of collected editions because I'm moving back to trades. So I'll have lots to talk about. Don't worry. And obviously the show will continue because I still will read a bunch of things digitally. It's just physical comic or physical single issues I'm moving away from. Before we get into everything, I'm very excited to talk about this drink today. It's very interesting. We're going with a strawberry rose lemonade. Now, anybody who's watched the show knows that I've gone with like Red Bulls before. I've gone with coffees before. And I've learned that normally I probably shouldn't be drinking a beverage like this during the show. Hyper acidic things I don't think are like conducive with like long-term speaking gigs. Like it's not a great idea. But I was feeling like I didn't want to go with the regular coffee this morning. I actually just finished my morning coffee. I didn't want to double back on the iced coffee, do a little vanilla, whatever I did last week. Didn't want to double up on that. I want to keep things fresh, keep things interesting. So I wanted to go with a lemonade today. So I might pay the price, might get all like slimy in the mouth. Sorry to go ASMR on you guys, but we're gonna see how it goes. So let's just get into the brass tacks of it. I have a new segment for you guys that is gonna happen every once in a while as I make purchases. This is random pickups. So I have 4 of a random pickup that are technically not something I bought. There was something I was actually gifted. I want to give another shout out to Yoo-Hoo Comic Review, who was so gracious enough to give me a care package. If you are curious about everything I got in the care package, go check out one of my latest TikToks. I did a full unboxing of everything he gave me. But we have 4 comics here that I wanted to speak very briefly about. I can't give you guys in-depth thoughts because I haven't gotten the chance to read them yet, but they're really cool. So they're Astonishing Spider-Man here. I'll put one up there so you guys can get a good view of it. But this is, I think, like 98 or something like that. So it's the tail end of the 90s. And what makes these really cool is they're all oversized issues. So I think they're coming up on 50 pages each. And they're made of a very interesting paper stock that I'm very interested in. It's like a denser paper stock. The print quality is fine and everything like that. But yeah, it's like, as you can read at the top here, collector's edition, which I think is super interesting. I've actually never seen this specific type of printing before, especially from this time. I've read lots of 90s stuff before, tons of 90s Spider-Man, tons of 90s X-Men, and I remember in the tail end of the 90s, the paper grade, they switched to glossy at that point, but this specific type I've never seen before. It's actually reminiscent of what you see from DC right now. It's like kind of like a matte finish, thicker paper grade. So this is really cool. I'm excited to read these. This is, as you could tell by the cover, Ben Reilly era, and Ben Reilly's always been a very fascinating character for me because I remember when reading them as a kid, and by the time I started reading Spider-Man when I was much younger, I was either reading kind of like dollar back issues, which a lot of that was like Conway era, like 70s, 80s, a little bit of Roger Stern in there, era ASM. So I have some of those issues still, and some of them are actually worth a decent amount. They're just complete beater copies that are just like run ragged. But I was pretty much out of the Ben Reilly era, like by the time I started reading stuff. So he had kind of been just something that was like loosely referenced, but you could find a lot of his books. And I remember as a kid really not rocking with the Ben Reilly stuff. I didn't like the Clone Saga. I didn't like, I could get into 90s Spider-Man if we're talking about like Todd McFarlane type stuff because I really loved the art on it. But in terms of like narratives, I was really not into it. It wasn't until I got much older that I started kind of appreciating Ben Reilly for what he did. But at the time, you know, I was younger. I was like, it's Peter Parker or nothing. And like the only variations I could handle was like Ultimate Spider-Man Peter versus like 616 Peter. I was fine with that kind of differentiation. But you have to think at that time, we're talking about Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man and JMS Amazing Spider-Man. So it's kind of like a golden age for Spider-Man at that time. And so kind of going back and like somebody like gives you some, I don't know who was writing at that time, DeMatteis maybe, they present you with some DeMatteis era like Spider-Man. It's kind of a hard sell to like a much younger person, all those, because again the lore was deep. Like the Clone Saga is really trippy stuff, so it's very inaccessible. So when I was much younger, I was not trying to hear any of that. So I'm very excited to kind of see some of that material with fresh eyes here. I haven't read that before either because I've read some Clone Saga stuff but not specifically astonishing Spider-Man. I'm not even familiar with that adjective, so I'm actually quite excited to check that out. So yeah, that's my random pickups for this week. I'll have them periodically as I pick up random collected editions. I know I have like Human Target Volume 2 on the way, Dark Knights of Steel Volume 2, so there's some stuff that are coming on the way that I will just talk briefly about in future episodes. But let's get into our pull list this week. So we have, I believe, 10 books, should have been 11, but I got shorted again. Now, if you watched the last episode, you know that I got shorted my Catwoman, I think, Uncovered, or whatever the subtitle was for it, the art germ cover, because of, I think, shipping issues or something like that. My comic shop just got shorted. This time I got shorted another art germ book, but this one they straight up didn't put the order in for, and so that was a little rough. Thankfully, it was still able to be ordered, and I have a plan B to be able to secure another copy just in case that one falls through. So don't worry, I'm going to get my art germ one way or another, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit delayed, unfortunately. So let's get into the pull list. We're going to start with DC's this week. It's a great week for DC. We're going to talk about Batman 137 first. So this is part 2 of the Batman Catwoman Gotham War series. Before I get into the narrative, let's get into the cover real quick. This is a Delato variant, and if you haven't checked out like all the solicits for future issues, we have some really, really good Delato variants coming out for Batman. So if you're interested in that at all, I highly recommend you invest in these covers. These are some of the most beautiful covers coming out. And normally I go for more like the pretty stuff, the Nakayamas, the art germs, and stuff like that. Sometimes like Wernick covers, but yeah, Delato's doing his thing. It's just beautifully constructed cover. So I'm very excited to be able to have this issue. So let's get into the issues. So this is Chip Zdarsky written. It's the continuation of the Gotham War series, as I said, and that was kind of set up last week. And the kind of high level overview of what's happening is, as you know, Batman's kind of been out of the picture. He's been basically comatose due to everything that happened with Night Terrors. And so he's out of the picture briefly. Also, as you know, he was kind of universe hopping, so he was like messed up from that too. So Batman's been going through it, and he's kind of been out of commission, at least temporarily. And so in that time, if you've been reading Tini Howard's Catwoman, you know that she's been making strides to clean up Gotham in her own creative way. And specifically, that is kind of getting to the crux of why these violent crimes are happening and how to poach the people who are participating in that crime to be able to redirect their energy elsewhere. And specifically, she targeted like ex-henchmen who have been done wrong by a lot of the major players of the Gotham Underground, specifically like Two-Face and Penguin and Joker and stuff like that. So she gets these individuals, she teaches them how to be an effective cat burglar, which means that you target people that are not there with a lot of means. You get in, you get out, no one gets hurt. Financially, they'll be okay. You cash out. You don't have to worry about doing violent crimes. You pay all your bills. You take care of your family. They have some great commentary about like recidivism and stuff like that in terms of when you get incarcerated for these type of crimes and then you're a felon, and it makes it hard to get new jobs. So naturally, you have to be put in a situation where crime is the only way you can really generate income at that point. And so she found a way for them to generate income kind of still within the field of what they're familiar with, but with this new training so nobody gets hurt. But things go wrong, unfortunately. Someone gets killed, and Batman was already principally against her strategy of like, it's kind of like a Robin Hood approach. To him, crime is crime, and he is not sympathetic to the idea of like, hey, they're billionaires, who cares? Because obviously he comes from that background. And in many ways, I looked at as just commentary on his own privilege and how, and not saying that Batman is wrong, but just like being open about the fact that, yeah, he is a man of extreme wealth who comes from extreme wealth, and he's not going to take kindly to people of a similar lifestyle of him being targeted simply for that lifestyle. So he doesn't seem to be particularly interested in the wealth redistribution type strategies. He's more of a charity and black and white, crime is crime, walk the straight and narrow type of guy. But I'm so fascinated by the fact that like last time it seemed like the Bat family was a lot more split, but in terms of like some people were on Batman's side, some people were on Selina's side. But actually, if this issue did anything, it made it clear that it's not as divided as you'd think. It's pretty much everybody is sympathetic to Selina's cause. Jason Todd's the only one who will directly participate in that for the most part. The rest of them are kind of like hands off, like, I'm not going to stop you from doing your thing, but at the same time, we understand what you're doing. The only one who's straight up like on Batman's side is Damian, and he comes into the fold when basically the Bat family looks to intervene against Batman. And so you have this really cool action scene where he's facing off against everybody and he knows their powers. It was cool to see Duke there. I feel like he's like super underutilized these days. I don't know why you never see Duke. And it feels like they were doing like Batman and the Signal or something like that. They had like a little mini series. So I'm glad that he's made a reappearance, but overall, it was a really cool action scene. Damian is a good choice for the one person to maybe tag up with Batman. But yeah, I was surprised, to be honest with you, that everybody was like, spoiler and Barbara, like everybody was sympathetic to Selina's side, because the logic is sound. Like, again, I'm making no qualms about making my own biases known, that like my own politics, I think, kind of inform the fact that like I'm fully on Catwoman's side so long as nobody gets hurt. But obviously you can't control every variable. Like, Gotham's a messed up, very corrupt place, and she's finding a way that has like her very crude way of wealth redistribution is producing the desired outcome. Now, yes, somebody got hurt, and that is wrong, and that they need to deal with that, the ramifications for that. But I think you have to take a serious look at the strategy she's employed and the fact that it's effectively been more effective. And you know, I spoke about this last week, so it's very interesting stuff, and I really, really like this event. Again, it's 9 parts. That seems long. That seems like a lot, because I guess you have some Gotham War dedicated issues. You have Catwoman that's going to be contributing to it, and then you're going to have Batman contributing to it. So we're getting a lot of stuff. But yeah, I'm very, very into this issue. Let's get into the next one. We have Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, and I have this beautiful Nakayama foil variant. This was an absolute, like, I need to get this variant. This is about right below the art germs. It's Nakayama right there for me. So I'm very, very excited about having this book. This was a series that I otherwise probably wouldn't have collected, even though I really do quite like all the Dawn of DC stuff. But at the same time, I was like, you know, the cover is beautiful. I'm going to make this is just kind of an art investment, to be honest with you. Not investment in the way that I'm going to flip it, but in terms of like, I'm going to put a little bit of money towards collecting the art that I like. So that's mostly what it is. But overall, I would say I actually quite enjoyed this series. Now, mind you, I like Fire and Ice. I've read some of the like JLI stuff from the late 80s and stuff like that. So like, I like Fire and Ice. I don't think I was like really into Fire and Ice until like maybe Human Target. But obviously that is not like in continuity really, so it doesn't really matter to what this is trying to do. But overall, it's basically continuing right off where we kind of left them. Botched job gets sent to Smallville, and basically it's going into their experience in this new environment and how they take to it. And naturally, Ice is cool with this kind of slower type of lifestyle, so she takes well to it. She has a little salon, they get an employee. She's cool with the slow life she's having, dinner or lunch or whatever with Martha Kent. So that there's some really cute scenes. And then naturally you have Fire, who wants that more explosive. She wants their public profile up. She wants them to be taken seriously as superheroes, and so she kind of, in a roundabout way, introduces, she like has a dossier of different villains that she wants to target and bring them in so they can fight them. And Superman intervenes to try to help her, and that kind of blows her plans up. And so it seems like she's going to start some kind of like Smallville fight club. So overall, it's fun. It's not a series I would say is like super serious. It doesn't really lend itself that much, importantly, until like the general continuity of everything that's happening with Superman and stuff like that. But overall, it's a really fun series if you're a fan of Fire and Ice. If you're looking for especially something a little bit more on the slice of life side, I think this is definitely something you'll like. So yeah, Fire and Ice #1 overall, solid issue. DNA covers, man, you can't go wrong. Finally, Poison Ivy is back. We have Poison Ivy #14 here. Unfortunately, I had to get the cover A. I could have sworn that I ordered that Nakayama one, but I guess not. So stuck with the cover A there, but cover A looks really, really solid. So basically, I had to do a little bit of looking up, like, where did we leave her off? So basically, she's left Harley, not like romantically, but like kind of went on her own again and is doing her normal investigations of different companies and stuff like that. And it is very much in line with what the series has been, with these kind of like one-off investigations. And now they've set up a new antagonist that I'm very excited to see kind of where that goes. But overall, really solid issue. We have a really interesting exchange between, I forget her name. Is her name Karen? So I forget why. I feel bad. I forget the other one's name, but the woman that's been tagging along with Pam and Harley have like a really interesting exchange where maybe they're getting involved a little bit. So we're ending up in kind of like a throuple situation that I think is very interesting. So I'm excited to go. I just love this series, man. Excellent like queer representation, beautiful art. The story is compelling. I love that this has kind of gotten upgraded to ongoing status. So not much thoughts beyond that, but I highly recommend you check this out if you haven't so far. Let's continue with DC. We have Peacemaker Tries Hard. Number 5, another movie variant for you guys. This continues to be a lot more fun. The series actually still going. I thought for a second it was going to end with this one, but I think we at least have 1 or 2 more issues of this. Probably just 1. But overall continues to be really, really funny, and we get some great action in this one. We get some good exchanges between Red Bee and Peacemaker. And so overall, oh yeah, we see some cool stuff where you find out that, I forget his name, the brain guy has basically employed lots of different control people possessed by him in the past. He was even controlling that giant wheel that kind of affected Red Bee in his youth. So we get some really cool stuff, and unfortunately the bee gets hurt, so that was like a little sad moment. But overall, the series is just so much fun. But again, I can't emphasize enough, like if you like Peacemaker, the show specifically, check out this series. Don't sleep on it. Let's keep it moving, but we're gonna get into Marvel this time. ASM, what is this? 33, and this was a rough one. I'm having so much issues with the covers with ASM right now, and maybe it's just me. I know some people really do like the Romita stuff, so I'm not gonna like crap on you guys. I haven't been into Romita Jr. for a while now, and even though he's stepped out of a lot of the Internals, doing the art for the Internals, he's still doing the covers for a lot of them, and I don't really like any of those covers. So I always pretty much look for different variants I can get, and some of them are better than others. Every once in a while I have to pick up like a Greg Land. They've had some other Black Cat ones that I've gotten, and this one was the best, I think, of the cover 8 or the alternate covers that were being offered by my shop for ASM. But yeah, I'm not happy with this cover either. So for anybody's looking, it's like, oh, that's not the cover I expected you to get. Yeah, me neither. I don't love it, but overall the issue is quite good. So this is continuing the stuff that we saw related to Kraven hunting Peter. As you know, Peter got injected with the sins of Norman Osborn, so we're getting kind of this dark Peter, and we get the return of the black suit, which is really, really exciting. And basically this is Kraven's last hunt in reverse, basically. So you have Peter hunting Kraven, or Kraven's son, I suppose, and it's really interesting to see Kraven in this super hyper vulnerable state where he's like being effectively toyed with by Peter. And Spider-Man can be a very menacing individual when he's kind of off his rocker a little bit. So it was a really great issue, and I like seeing Zeb Wells not copy but attempt to write similarly to like DeMatteis, for example, when he was writing Kraven's Last Hunt, where it's so poetic and like these kind of scattered thoughts kind of going through this very animalistic journey. I love Kraven's Last Hunt, and I wasn't super into that newest, what is it, Kraven the Lost Hunt or whatever that last Spider-Man volume that came out. It was like a 5-issue series or something like that. I didn't really love it. It was kind of like another retro attempt to kind of nostalgia series. This, I think, is actually doing surprisingly a little bit better of a job of capturing that original spirit, but trying something new. So it's a very creative way. But apparently this Norman Osborn Sin Spider-Man thing is setting up all the way to, I think, like issue 59 or something like that, 49, 59. So this apparently is going to be quite a long arc. I saw for the solicits in Comics Geek that I think it's the next issue is the one that sets up the next, I forget what is it, like 24 issues or something like that, and it starts with 34, so like 25 issues or something like that, which is insane. So we do know that for a fact that it seems like Zeb Wells is going to stay on the title for at least quite a while, another 25 issues or so at the least, and it seems like this arc is going to be another major arc. So this is going to be, I guess, the next major thing kind of coming off of, that whole Mary Jane, Paul, Wyatt, Benjamin Rabin, all that stuff, that how that was like a longer arc thing, not these smaller arcs like what he did with Vulture and what he did with Dr. Octopus. Those are like the micro arcs he's done. What I'm curious about is how this ties into Gang War, you know what I mean? Because Gang War is coming, and I see the solicits all for that, so that's only, I think, like a month or so away. But at the same time, we have this Kraven Queen Goblin thing going on with a lot of loose ends there. Like, Kraven seemed to get pretty wrecked by the end of this, where you get a really stone cold moment where like Peter tosses them the shotgun, which is a reference to his father having killed himself at the end of Kraven's Last Hunt, and basically he's like being buried alive again. The immediate connections to Kraven's Last Hunt. I would totally understand the critique if you're like, it's a little on the nose, like it's a literal like flip. It almost feels like Star Wars Force Awakens to like New Hope, like where it's like almost a reskin. This feels, I could see why it's like a little too literal for some people, but overall I think Zeb Wells is making some solid decisions that I actually quite like with Spider-Man. But again, I am curious because this sins injected Peter Parker is such a different direction than what Gang War seemed to be building with the whole marriage getting botched up in, I think, what, issue 925 or something like that. So yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes, but overall, fun issue. I liked it a lot. We have X-Men number 26, and I have to commend Jerry Duggan quite a bit again. He is killing it, man. Like, I thought once upon a time, I thought he was like maybe in 4th or 5th place in terms of creators in the X office that I actually got really excited about their output. It was always like Kieran Gillen, Al Ewing. Sometimes Percy had his moments that were like pretty excited, but it was definitely like, oh my god, I forget his name. The one who's doing Sabretooth, so I apologize for Victor Laval. Sorry, Victor Laval was like oftentimes like a number 3, and then Jerry Duggan was he was like consistent, but a little bit lower down there in terms of like my general interest level. But when they kind of put him in charge of Fall of X, he's absolutely killing it, and that I think is a testament that like when you give the one creator the chance to go crazy, aka like Joshua Williamson over there at DC. He's filled the role quite well, and so this is actually a really fun issue. So you have some really cool Firestar, Kitty Pryde stuff, or Firestorm. I always forget, if it's Firestar or Firestorm? I think it's Firestar. You get a really good exchange with them where obviously she's on an Orchis base, effectively placed there by Jean Grey to be the mole into Orchis, and she kind of falsely implanted memories into like Dr. Stasis and MODOK and all that. So they all think she's been the basically sellout mutant, and Emma Frost has kind of brought Kitty Pryde up to speed, so Kitty Pryde basically doesn't murk her because Kitty Pryde is not able to go through the Krakoan gates, and she's hunting people down. And we have basically Ronin Kitty Pryde era, and so that's really good stuff. And basically Kitty Pryde is brought up to speed about everything that happened with Firestar, and she actually rescues Firestar, and so that's pretty cool. Or I believe no, she leaves her on the base actually. So that was really great stuff. You also get the answers about how the Tony Stark Emma Frost marriage thing is happening, and I think a lot of people guessed that it was going to be this kind of like strategic thing to maybe protect Emma or to kind of unite things. It seems actually more of a gag, if anything. So basically you get a look at the updated Hellfire Club, and you get an amazingly written exchange between Kingpin and Emma Frost, because if you don't remember, Kingpin has actually been living for a short period of time on Krakoa with his wife Typhoid Mary, who, if you're reading Realm of X, you know that she's been transported to Vanaheim or something like that, but he doesn't know where she is right now, and so he's pissed off at Orchis right now, and so he is looking to get back at them. So he's pretty much allied completely with the mutants. However, he makes it clear that it's going to be in a position of strength and power that he does so with, so he's leveraging his power and his resources, and he's basically employing Emma Frost and kind of is leading the restored Hellfire Club. And Tony Stark is also part of the Hellfire Club, and then you find out actually Fei Long is also in the mix too. So very interesting stuff. Obviously having Fei Long there is really upsetting and triggering naturally to Tony, and especially Emma Frost, having known that he was so instrumental to literally her people dying. So basically, Fei Long stumbles across Tony and Emma speaking in the closet, but if you don't remember, Emma Frost doesn't have her normal appearance. She has kind of this like altered look through some kind of technology that is actually strangely reminiscent of like older Moira. It kind of reminded me of like pre-robot Moira, so that was actually kind of interesting. And so you get a little exchange there, and Fei Long is like, hey, what is going on here? What are you like gonna propose to her? And he just kind of goes with it, surprisingly enough, and proposes to her. And so I guess that's how we're gonna get the marriage. two questions there, I guess, which is like, well, not questions, but one thing that it was surprising that they handled it comically, because again, I thought there was going to be a very practical purpose to them getting married. So I guess not. I guess it's just him rolling with the punches. I don't know what strategic advantage there is to him doing that, but we'll see. And then at the same time on the cover, it's very clearly Emma Frost that is marrying Tony Stark, which for all intents and purposes to a lot of the Orchis people, they think she's dead. So because again, he's intervened and saved her and was hiding her in the sewers and stuff like that. So I'm curious if that the cover of Tony Stark and Emma Frost in her normal form getting married, was that just kind of a creative decision for the covers? Because if they had her in her altered state, I forget her name, the alias that she's taken up, that wouldn't be recognizable to a bulk of the audience. So it's just kind of a creative decision, or will she be actually donning her normal look for the marriage, and how they're going to handle that? So lots of questions. Interesting direction, but overall, very, very good issue. And I love the fact that now we have a solid 3 books coming out at the same time every month or so, that are actually killing it for the X office. Because again, before, it's been basically a two-way race for me between Immortal and Red. And I still don't think that like Adjectiveless X-Men by Jerry Duggan is like on Immortal or Red levels. However, the gap is a lot less big, you know. In this Fall of X era, it's like right there with him. So and like Children of what is the Children of the Vault is also like right there too. I think Children of the Vault is probably a little better than this, but overall, excellent issue. Let's stay in the X-Men world. We have Immortal X-Men number 15, Kieran Gillen written. One of the few series that I can very comfortably get the cover A every month and feel very good about it, because the cover A's are excellent. I like the Quiet Council variants. I think this issue had Selene on it, but I don't have any of the previous ones, so I was like, you know what, let me just stay with the cover A's. I think have one Immortal X-Men book without the cover A's, so I was like, you know what, that's fine, I'll go with it. Overall, very, very good issue. It kind of picks up where we left the mutants off in Nowhere No When, led by Exodus and Hope, kind of dragging along Destiny here. They're still in the desert. You get some really, really fun stuff about how they're surviving and kind of using the different abilities to kind of feed people and protect everybody and keep everybody cool. They move during the nights, and so again, it is very on the nose with the Jewish exodus out of Egypt led by Moses from the Bible. They're keeping all of that, and obviously, you know, with the character Exodus. So there's some interesting references to Jesus being a mutant, at least Exodus believes so, but I think that's pretty interesting stuff. I don't know if that's previously been referenced by Kieran Gillen or Marvel in general, but that it was very interesting, I guess, technically a revelation. Again, I don't know if it was one of those things where like Exodus, because you know Exodus has like some really interesting ideas, especially when it comes to like Hope being this messianic figure. I don't know if he's just like ascribing a set of like observations he makes to the character Jesus, or the historical figure Jesus, or is this like a literal thing that like in the world, like in the Marvel universe, is now canon. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. But overall, yeah, Immortal X-Men is killing it, and surprise, surprise, Mother Righteous makes an appearance again and is getting hunted by, I guess, like these cloned Wolverines. I don't actually fully know what the context behind that is, like where those cloned Wolverines are coming from. But she's in the desert, the mutants stumble across her, and she's kind of playing this role of this kind of like vulnerable, like, hey, I'm a mutant too, and I'm getting attacked, and thanks for saving me. But we all know that she actually took Krakoa with her, so I think she like placed herself there, but she was basically able to bring them back into the island effectively. And so yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Effectively, Mother Righteous kind of saved their ass there. And I guess we got the formal reveal that she's a mutant. I mean, she says it and it's treated like a reveal, but I was always under the assumption that she was just like, you know, Sinister is kind of, I guess, genetically modified mutant. But yeah, no, really interesting stuff. A really, really solid issue. Again, this continues to be some of the best stuff that I think Marvel puts out on a regular basis. Let's talk really quick before I put this away about the ending of that, and huge spoilers to anybody who hasn't read Immortal X-Men. But at the very end there, you get the reveal of 3 characters. You get Apocalypse, you get a chained up Jean Grey, and then I think you get another Wolverine. And you could assume that at least 2 of the 3 of them are clones. Jean Grey is dead, unless he somehow reanimated her, which is unlikely. You have Wolverine, which I don't think technically know the current state of. We had those Wolverines in the desert, who are very obviously clones. You have the main Wolverine Ben Percy series right now, which is doing Weapons of Vengeance, which from what I understand probably takes place before the fall of X. Certainly, like the flashbacks are back to the Winchester mansion, so that's way old. But there is the modern portion of it, but I think it's still pre-fall of X. So in terms of like where currently Wolverine is, we don't know. So I'm assuming that is a clone, but it may not. And then you have Apocalypse, who has made some appearances tied to the Al Ewing stuff in X-Men Red. Obviously, you have his wife or ex-wife, whatever, Genesis, leading the attack on Arakko. And so we assume that Apocalypse is still an Amenth. This could be him, though. I don't know. Bringing Apocalypse into Immortal X-Men would be really fun, especially in this kind of Fall of Krakoa era where the Quiet Council's not in great standing. We could use that leadership from someone at this point. Magneto's dead. Charles is grieving and fending off Orcus agents on Krakoa, which, I did forget to talk about that scene. How insane was that to see Charlie actually be offensive and actually like slaughter Orcus agents? Kind of, I mean, they didn't really give him an option because from what I understand, they have like psi blockers, so he couldn't do his normal like monster, everybody run off thing. So he had to fight off against them, and unfortunately, you don't actually get to see him like literally fight anybody, but it's a pretty graphic scene where you just see these people like cut off and cut in half and everything like that. So that was trippy. But yeah, Charles Xavier he's done with. He's mentally fried. Magneto dead. Storm is up there in Arakko fighting for her place in the circle up there. So her authority is kind of wonky right now. If anything, you could say that Genesis is probably going to arrive on top in terms of running Arakko. And then you have Selene and Sebastian Shaw kind of fighting for ownership rights of like the IP and the island itself of Krakoa. But at the same time, yeah, there's no clear like leader. I guess you could point towards like Exodus and Hope, kind of, with the what is it, 250,000 or whatever that are in Nowhere No When. But they could use someone like Apocalypse to kind of help take things back. So very interesting stuff. I'm curious to see if that is a clone or the actual Apocalypse. If this is the actual Apocalypse, what an interesting way to introduce him, I would say. But overall, very fun stuff. Let's keep it moving. Moon Knight number 27 continues to be another excellent run. I have the cover A here, Jed MacKay written. Basically, you have Hunter's Moon and Moon Knight going into the mind, trying to find the location of the Black Spectre or what that's all about, and helping someone deal with their own demons and what he's become. And it was a fun little thought experiment type issue. Not a lot of like literal things in the moment, but setting up the new set of antagonists. Excellent art on it. Again, just continues to be a very easy, quick read, very fun read. I think this is going to go down as one of the best modern era Moon Knight runs for sure. Jed MacKay is just absolutely killing it. Not much more thoughts other than that. No major revelations in this issue, so we can keep moving. Second to last issue, we have Scarlet Witch, and I actually just made a TikTok about this because I wanted to. It probably won't be up by the time that I post this episode, but keep an eye out for it for the next week or so. But just talking about this issue by Steve Orlando. This one is Loki focused, and as you know, various different characters have made cameos. You've had Joseph, who actually is still around in this one. You've had Hulkling and Wiccan make an appearance. You've had Polaris make an appearance. Pietro was there early on. So you've had lots of different figures that have kind of crossed paths with Scarlet Witch, and I love that it continues to be a very kind of chill vibe for this series. It's a relaxed thing. It's not some crazy like action thing, but it kind of just allows Wanda and the character that she's working with to kind of work through their own issues and kind of psychoanalyze themselves and work through their traumas and stuff like that. So every issue kind of feels like its own little therapy session almost, and I love that because, and I said this in the TikTok, but this is the exact series that I feel like Wanda needed right now, because coming off of WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness over there in the MCU, there's been this kind of renewed interest in the kind of like out of control, unhinged Wanda, so much power, taking control with the Darkhold, and her almost positioned as like more of an antagonist. So with WandaVision, you get renewed interest in like House of M and M Day and Decimation and all that stuff. But she is not there in the comics currently. If you've read The Trial of Magneto, you have all this Redeemer stuff with Krakoa and the X-Office stuff. She's not where she used to be. She's very much in control of herself, and she's actually successfully on, I think, 2 teams. She's on the Uncanny Avengers and the regular Jed McKay Avengers run right now. And so, yeah, we're not dealing with the same Wanda that was like clicking mutants out of existence, you know, the whole no more mutants thing. She's gotten it together, she's gotten in control of her power, and she's trying to make amends in the way that she can, and in some ways she's found peace with the role that she plays right now. And I love that the series is giving her a chance to really just slow things down, you know, reduce the temperature, explore the character a little bit, and just give her a chance to truly help others when they've positioned her so often as a person that almost does nothing but inadvertently hurt those around her. She's in a position exclusively helping people out, them being sometimes out of their own will presented to her, and she kind of helps them go through their own journeys. I love it. And you get some fun Loki stuff in here where you get this kind of like logic battle between her and him, kind of trauma offing each other. It's really funny stuff. What a great read though. So yeah, Scarlet Witch continues to be one of my favorite series out right now. And let's end this off with the Spider-Gwen Annual 1. This is another Contest of Chaos tie-in. You have another, I guess, Tiger Division character that she's facing off against here. It's fine. I had pre-ordered this for 2 reasons. One thing, it's Spider-Gwen. We don't have a Spider-Gwen ongoing right now, so I was like, let me just buy it. And then at the same time, this cover, I mean, look at how beautiful this cover is. So I was like, and it was before I actually knew that was a Contest of Chaos tie-in, and anybody that watches the show or watches my TikToks know that I'm not the biggest fan of this event. I am a fan of them utilizing the annuals to like do something, so I like that idea, because a lot of times the annuals kind of feel like pointless with all these series, so they're at least being put to use for this event. I'm just not into this event overall, and maybe again, I always try to shoot them some bail and try to be optimistic about it in the fact that like I haven't seen the climax of this yet, so there's still a couple tie-ins to go to see what Agatha's really trying to do in terms of building this team. So we'll see. It could still be fun when it's all said and done, but I didn't really enjoy reading this. It's fine. It's another battle. They're going through different areas, and I don't know if it's necessarily multiverse hopping, but there's some good comedy in there. Fine action, I guess, but definitely not my favorite book. So we're going to get into what else I read this week, but I'm going to take a quick break just to drink a little lemonade. So how y'all doing? Doing good? Go drink something on your end too. All right, let's keep it moving. So we have Fantastic Four number 11. This is from the Ryan North run, and this is an interesting run because, as I've said, previous episodes, very episodic. It doesn't have necessarily a super big tying in narrative, other than the fact that in the first issue there was that whole, or the first 3 issues, I think actually, with the whole like, what did the Fantastic Four do, or what did Reed Richards do, or whatever. And basically they accidentally transported their kids away for a year, and so this series is effectively showing what they're doing in the meantime. And you basically get a cute video, or a cute issue of Ben Grimm hanging out with a dog, and the house is falling down a hole. And then you have, what is his name? Miracle Man or whatever. And it was cool. It was definitely not my favorite issue. It was one of the least favorite issues that I've had in quite a bit. So I was not really into this one so much. But overall, again, I still think it's a very solid run. But this issue was not my favorite, which is kind of a letdown because the last 2 I think have been bangers. We have Doctor Strange number 7. So basically you have Doctor Strange facing off of the character that was built in the last issue, General Strange, the one who fought on behalf of the Vishanti for like 4,000 years or something like that. So you have a really cool face off there, and you have a very interesting moment where Doctor Strange has to deal with not only the ramifications of what that version of him did, but him kind of having to grapple with that version of himself, knowing that like that can be done to him. Must be a pretty trippy thing where you see yourself in certain circumstances and what you can become. It's really rough things, and you have this other version of himself who has a very skewed perspective of like, it's like a win by any means necessary type of guy. So he's willing to sacrifice everything and kill everyone to be able to complete the mission. And because he's sacrificed so much, he's put in so much. And if you read the last issue, and I highly recommend, if you wanted to jump into Doctor Strange, this is not the place to do it. At least read the last one. It was crazy to see what war can do to you psychologically, especially over that insane time scale. So yeah, really great stuff. Again, another, I believe, Jed MacKay written series, and he's killing it on this one as well. Let's keep it moving. We have Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Weapons of Vengeance, Omega number 1. So this is part 4 of it. So this is the final end of it, and you get a little bit more context of the demon that they've been looking for all this time, that effectively has been a demon that produces art for Mephisto. It's pretty campy, goofy stuff, but it's fun overall. And you have Helverine that's being possessed by it, and the boy who the demon was inside of all those previous issues basically wants him back and is willing to kind of dedicate himself on behalf of the demon because he doesn't like living without it, this emptiness, because he's effectively had it for most of his life at this point. And so he's trying to get that back, and they're both kind of sealed away, and you get some cool action choreography between Wolverine and Ghost Rider themselves. It's cool. I'm not mad at it, but it was good to finally understand, okay, like what is this demon doing, making these weird pillars of mutants and hunting it. So yeah, overall I thought it was a fun event. It again felt so 90s to me, so it was very much of a throwback type of feel, but great body horror. Benjamin Percy did his thing, so I'm not mad at this. And again, like, if you're writing 2 series, the ability to kind of cross them over, I think, is like a writer's dream. Like it must be so fun for, like, you know, Tini Howard has gotten the opportunity to do it and stuff like that. So being Ben getting his chance to find a weird middle zone between Wolverine and Ghost Rider and make it thematically work is cool. Now it's gonna be an interesting hard left turn, especially because this stood very much in the Ghost Rider world. It's way more of a Ghost Rider event than a Wolverine event. The Wolverine tie-in is the fact that he's targeting mutants, and the fact that this kid was brought to the mansion and is clearly not a mutant. So that's the tying narrative to Wolverine specifically. But it's going to be a crazy left turn when we go back to regular business for Wolverine, and I guess we're going to pick up after the Fall of X, so we'll get the answer of what's going on there. So interesting stuff. Let's keep moving. Silk number 5. This is the end of this volume of Silk. You have her going back into the dream world to face off against, I believe the name is Kaya, and rescue her brother. And yeah, this series continues to be really fun. I just love how different it is than all the rest of the Spider books right now, because again, you have quite a bit. Adjectiveless Spider-Man just ended. You have ASM that always continues. You have Miles Morales. You have Spider-Man India. And so Silk is just doing its own thing, and it is a great analysis of her relationship with her brother, and seeing him as a grown man and seeing him for what they have to bring to the table, and the fact that, like, he can actually kind of help himself, and they allude to the idea that he might be joining up with her to some capacity to help people, but obviously he doesn't really have powers like that. So it's interesting stuff, and I'm excited to see the role that he plays. It makes me wonder if he's going to take like a Dario like role. For anybody who's reading Catwoman, actually, you know, another person who's effectively a civilian but wants to help out, and so gets trained in combat and stuff like that, and it's able to help out in his own way. I would imagine Silk's brother is probably going to take a similar role, but overall I liked this volume of Silk. I actually like this volume of Silk more than I like the last one, but I like what they're doing with Silk. I just wish they'd just go ahead and give her an ongoing so she can really make some progress with the character, instead of these tiny little but these tiny little mini series with these 5 issues here, 5 issues there, you know, maybe once a year. It's stupid to me. I feel like, and you know, she's there for part of the year and then she's gone again, when they could just keep an ongoing. And I understand, yeah, maybe she's not the biggest seller, but she's probably not the biggest seller because she doesn't have a consistent book on the shelves, you know what I mean? Kind of like Spider-Gwen and stuff like that. So I would love to see her get a proper ongoing to give the character a real time to cook. Get a team on there that can stick on there for some time, whoever it may be, and just give them a shot to write the character and have fun with it for some time. Give it a nice, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 issue run would be really sick. to see, because imagine if like Miles couldn't get ongoing and you only get like 5 issues at a time, how many storylines we would have missed out on. Like, what can you do in 5 issues? Really not too much. Like, you can have these one antagonist, one situation, they're introduced to it, they go through it, they solve it, see you next year. Like, you can't do anything with that. So I'm hoping that Silk gets a better treatment going forward. Let's continue. We have Black Panther number 4, Evel Ewing written. We have finally the answer of who hired that Deathlock to attack the wedding, and it's basically another rival clan. So we're still dealing with the kind of rival factions in Wakanda, and it's just really interesting stuff. Again, an amazing exploration of Wakanda overall. I love the low level stuff. You finally get to know that Black Panther's cousin is the person that's been working with all these with the community, and so that he's and you have T'Challa utilizing him to try to get information about this kind of almost mythical underground figure that he believes is behind a lot of this. So they're building to some really interesting stuff. I like this Black Panther run quite a bit. I think it's one of the better runs in quite a while. And again, I liked the last run, but for me, this is some of the best Black Panther I've read since like the Coates run or something like that. So Black Panther continues to be really solid. Now let's get into some DC stuff. We have Shazam number 3, Mark Waid written, and basically this is picking up where the last one left off, where Billy is concerned about transforming into Shazam because he loses control, and you basically find out that there's this group of gods effectively that feel like he's been misusing the power and not really exercising the authority that Shazam effectively gives him. And so they're like taking control of when he's in power of Shazam and trying to force him to utilize the power in the way they want him to use the power. So and they have his brother hostage, and so it's really fun stuff. Another really solid Dawn of DC book. Let's get into one of my favorite DC books of the week. We have Birds of Prey number 1, and this was so fun. I love this lineup, and just bringing Big Barda into it and stuff like that. Yeah, just overall, just like such a good book so far, and a really great start of number 1. The only downside is, I don't have the physical version of it, but yeah, let's pull it up because I wanted to make sure that I got everybody. So we have Cassie Kane, Big Barda, Zealot, Harley Quinn, and Black Canary, and Black Canary is running this team. And so it answers pretty quickly why she has this kind of very unconventional group here, and she kind of analyzes the pros that they all bring, and they all kind of reluctant into bringing Harley into the fold. But yeah, it's great comedy, great action, excellently written. Overall, I think this is just such an excellent book, and I'm very, very excited to see where it goes. And you get this reveal at the end that I'm like, it's crazy. You finally find out the mission that they're going to do is that they're going to try to save her Black Canary's sister Cynthia from the Amazon. So I guess they're going to be breaking into Themyscira, which is obviously incredibly dangerous. So as a Wonder Woman super fan, I am so excited to see where that goes. So yeah, shout out to Birds of Prey number 1. We have Blue Beetle number 1, the beginning of this run. Overall, very, very good stuff. And basically, this takes a little bit of a second to examine Jaime's position, as they're no longer treating him as like the super rookie, which I really, really like, because they have a conversation between him and Ted, where basically he's like leading this team, and they're amateurish. They're still learning to fully control their powers, and naturally Jaime is a little bit frustrated with that. And basically Ted has to remind him, like, listen, man, like, you got this. Remember, you were in their place at one time too. And I just love seeing him not being treated like the little kid anymore. You know what I mean? Putting him in a little bit of more of a veteran position. And overall, it was really fun. They're setting up some fun antagonists for this run. The art is excellent, and again, another Dawn of DC banger. So I'm really impressed with DC's output this part of the year for sure. City Boy number 4, we have him in Bloodhaven working in conjunction with Nightwing this time, and he has this little bat personification of Bloodhaven. It's cute stuff, man. I like City Boy overall. It's something that took a little bit to get going for me. I didn't love it at first, but once I kind of got the vibe for like his power set and what they were doing, I was like, okay. And so now we have a very clear picture of what's happening here, and you have this other group of bad people who are effectively trying to bring new Apocalypse to Earth. and so they're working on behalf of Darkseid. And so you see that there is this larger narrative and aspirations for the antagonists for this series that I think is actually really cool. Especially with the fact that City Boy's powers are not like these super insane things. Like, obviously, when his powers are exploited, he can extend cities and try to turn the whole world into a city effectively, like Apocalypse. So it's crazy stuff, man. But I'm excited to see what the scale of this series is going forward, like how broad this gets and how many people are like, are we going to bring in the new gods? Like, how crazy are we going to get with this? But overall, yeah, City Boy is a really fun series that's really started to grow on me. And then lastly, we have a little bit of indie action here. We have Once Upon a Time at the End of the World number 9. And this is written by Jason Aaron. And talk about a series that I feel like is getting better and better every week, to be honest with you. Or not every week, but every time it releases. And I guess this is a monthly book, but it doesn't feel like it in between issues. It feels like they're coming out here and there. But overall, yeah, this series is great. And basically, you get to see the complete falling apart of the utopia that they built together, and effectively their relationship, because you see basically how they were at odds at first, and then they built this beautiful relationship together, and then they really examined what it meant to truly have like kind of unclaimed open love with everybody. So they examined some ideas of like polyamory and kind of, especially in like this post world where you kind of just love multiple people because you have that much love to go around. And then things really start to hit the fan, and now you get this situation where they start to not traditionally grow apart, but are kind of starting to be forced apart by some force, and we don't have information on what that is, but there's some kind of corruption going on there. And you get this situation where Mateo is trying to clog up these gases. He's really convinced that there's gases going around, and her name escapes me, so I apologize for that. But she is convinced that there's an individual going around, and then at the very end, when they finally take each other's masks off, because they're hearing each other say things that they're not actually saying, and they really just want to like come back together. They realize like things have really kind of come between them. Everybody's gone. More than half of these people are dead probably at this point, who didn't leave at that point. And so they take their masks off at the end, and it's super trippy where like they see really messed up, warped versions of each other, and they both come to the realization that the person that they've been looking for are each other. And so it's tricky stuff, and it makes me wonder like how we get from this position to the kind of fast forward position where they're both being hunted, and you know they're much older, but they seem to have some kind of rapport with each other in the future at least. So yeah, I'm very curious to see where this series goes. This series didn't go in the direction where I thought it was, but it's so good, man. And I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on the series. So if you are not reading Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, you like Jason Aaron, I highly recommend you check out this series. It's only 9 issues in, so you can pick up a trade in a couple issues and then you'll be caught up. But yeah, let's get into pick of the week now that I've read all that. And I kind of predetermined it this week. I have to give it to this series because I feel like the last 2 times it's dropped or something like that. Unfortunately, there's been one book that was just a little better than it, but I chose the wrong one. Embarrassing. I'm gonna go with this one. Here we go. Immortal X-Men number 15. I have to go with it. Kieran Gillen is an absolute master, and if you are an X-Men fan, it's hard to get better than this right now in the Krakoa era. Like he knows what he's doing, and this nowhere, no when stuff is super trippy, and the collapse of Orchis, the Quiet Council, and the way that Orchis is working, and just the crazy reveals at the end. I think Kieran Gillen is just having a ton of fun with the series in an otherwise pretty over the top time, and it's a heavy situation that he's not putting too much depth into. You know, he's just having fun with it, and so I appreciate that. So yeah, Immortal X-Men number 15, definitely my pick of the week. So let's get into reading recommendations for next week. Next week is going to be a really, really strong week. So let's just get into these really quick. Let's get all the X-Men series that I recommend, because I pretty much recommend everything coming out of the X Office next week. So first off, X-Force number 44. The last issue was actually quite good because we finally got some answers about Colossus specifically. That whole Russian storyline was kind of set up back in, I think, like volume 1 or something like that. So a while ago, 2019, 2020 stuff. And so finally we're getting the answers related to that. And if you remember the last issue, the whole X-Force, you got the answer as to like why X-Force wasn't at the Hellfire Gala to intervene. You got the revelation by Domino that Colossus is compromised and like, killed his wife and stuff like that. And so and Sage has been brought in up to speed and everything like that, and they've basically been delivered to the Russians, who I guess were looking to invade Krakoa, but Krakoa is already they got beat to the punch by Orcus. So yeah, X-Force is definitely headed in a good direction, and I like it because X-Force was a little bit in a lull for me. They kind of overdid it with the Beast Wars thing, so I'm excited that we're kind of out of that. I don't know what Beast is doing right now, but it's very interesting where Beast might be the one to help them kind of take Krakoa back. So I'm excited to see what Ben Percy is doing right now. X-Men Red number 15, we're going to continue, maybe end the Genesis War stuff, so we'll kind of see what the shape of Arakko is right now. But yeah, Al Ewing is absolutely killing it, and that one's a no-brainer. Got to check that out. Children of the Vault number 2 is coming out. This one was a surprisingly good series that I did not expect. It had like almost an Eternals vibe to it. This series is really, really great. The only thing I don't love about it is the Cable Bishop stuff, but that's fine. I'll take it. We have Astonishing Iceman number 2, a really kind of classic, fun superhero series that I think you don't take too seriously, but I think is also a fun series. Let's stay with Marvel though. We have Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 10, Cody Ziegler, still killing it. This is my favorite Spider-Man series coming out right now. So if you want some just like really beautifully drawn, good street level Spider-Man stuff, Miles Morales is your guy right now. Especially ASM is doing something way different. I would say if you're out there for like some super trippy out there stuff, go with ASM right now, because yeah, Zeb Wells is making choices, controversial or not, that are really pushing the button. Miles Morales, I think, is just good Spider-Man. Cody Ziegler, I think, very much understands the character. I love the team that they have on it, the inks, everything, the colorist is just beautiful. So yeah, Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 10, highly recommended. We have Philip Kennedy Johnson's The Incredible Hulk number 4, sticking with the kind of folk horror thing. I love this series, and I feel like people, again, are sleeping on it because maybe they've just kind of fell off a Hulk lately, so definitely check out this series. We have Daredevil number 1. This is the start of the Saladin Ahmed run, so if you've been looking into a jumping on place for Daredevil, this is the place to do it. I haven't read an issue of Saladin Ahmed's run, but the way that Zdarsky's run ended, it was very much a reset, so I think this is going to be a great jumping on point. So for all you people who have been curious about Daredevil, keep an eye out for this one. We have Ghost Rider number 18 coming out. We're fresh off the Weapons of Vengeance series right now, so I'm excited to see what Ghost Rider does. This has been also a very good series coming out of a very good event. Ben Percy, this is probably my favorite Ben Percy series coming out right now, so definitely check out Ghost Rider number 18. We have one I'm curious about. I don't know much about it, but Werewolf by Night is coming back. Apparently we have a new number 1 for that. I don't know anything more beyond that. Let's see if I can pull up the writer. But yeah, Birds of Prey, I'm wondering if we're talking about like Jack Russell and everything there. So this one might be good, might be trash. I don't know much about it, but let's see if I can pull it up here on Comic Geeks. It's super low on there, like it was like low key, like no one was talking about it, so this may be good, may not be. Let's see, here we go. Werewolf by Night number 1. It's a $6 book. That seems a little pricey for me, but it's gonna be 36 pages, so it's slightly oversized. But we got Derek Landy writing it. Okay, so here's the synopsis. Let's get into it. So in an unholy alliance in the shadows of Black and White Night, Jack Russell races to halt the sacrifice of a young girl at the hands of monsters. Elsa Bloodstone, in all her colorful monster hunting glory, isn't far behind, but can they put their differences aside long enough to save the day? And what would such a partnership even look like? So sounds good enough. I've read some, like, I think it was like 70s or 80s Werewolf by Night stuff. Obviously that's where like Moon Knight comes out of and stuff like that. Moon Knight's had some crosses with the Werewolf whole crew there. The MCU Werewolf by Night little mini event was super good. I don't know a ton about like Elsa Bloodstone and all them, but that might be pretty good. So yeah, you might want to keep an eye out for that one. And then let's move into DC. It's a little bit smaller of a week, but we have Green Lantern number 3. I like this Green Lantern run so far. I found it to be pretty accessible. So if you're not a huge Green Lantern fan, like, well, I like Green Lantern a lot, but I don't know much about the character. I've been able to keep up with the series pretty well, so I highly recommend you check that out if you're a little bit newer to the character and you want a little bit more insight into the cosmic side of DC. That might be a good place to go. You have Batman and Robin #1, another Williamson written series. Somehow he's juggling another series. But I'm very excited about this one. I have a beautiful art germ cover that I'm praying on everything that they don't stiff me on for this one too. So yeah, Batman and Robin #1, we'll see about that. And then lastly, we have World's Finest Teen Titans #3, another Mark Waid written. World's Finest Batman Superman has been one of the best classic things. This one is super reminiscent of like the Perez era, Len Wein era written, like 80s stuff. Coming out of DC, like freshly post-crisis. So if you like the new Teen Titans era stuff, this is definitely going to be for you. I love the first 2 issues so far. I think they're easy, fun reads. You don't need to know a whole bunch about the characters. If you have a taste for the more classic stuff, you're looking for just some classic superhero comics, Mark Waid's your guy right now. So definitely check out the World's Finest lines, and I really hope that they continues with this. Even if like the only downside to Teen Titans is the fact that Dan Mora's art looks so beautiful on the Superman and Batman stuff, and I wish that he was also drawing the Teen Titans stuff. But this series looks good too. I'm really hoping that World's Finest continues. I'd love like a World's Finest, I don't know, a Wonder Woman and Donna Troy series or something like that. I think there's lots of potential for more World's Finest stuff, or like Green Lantern and Wonder Woman. Just some weird combos I think could be really, really fun. So those are my reading recommendations for next week. It's going to look like a pretty solid week, so I'm excited to check it out. Again, my pull list shouldn't be too crazy. I think we're only dealing with like 5 or 6 books or something like that, and then it's going to only get smaller from there. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Jibreel Talks Comics. I'll be back with another episode next week, and hopefully I'm working on getting a new Conversations episode lined up, so I'm gonna have a couple of those. Hopefully, I can't give you guys timing. Unfortunately, you gotta coordinate with other people and stuff like that. I can't just pump out Conversations by myself. So as soon as I can get other people locked in with me, we'll record an episode, edit it out, and then have it out as soon as possible. Maybe a couple day barrier between whenever the latest Jibreel Talks Comics episode, so we're not like right on top of each other. So expect it like in the midweek point of either this upcoming week or the week after. Probably I'll have an episode out. So till next time, this is Jibreel. I'll be back with another episode next week, and see you guys. Bye.